The sand of the basin shifted like hourglass grains beneath Rain-Kell's knees, each particle biting into flesh through the tattered remains of his technician's uniform. The sunset bled across the sky, painting the alien landscape in violent shades of amber and crimson, a beautiful, terrifying backdrop for an execution. He tasted copper and salt, the flavor of defeat mixing with the sweat of a man waiting to die. Above him, three judges stood like statues cast in bronze, their intricate blue facial markings pulsing with a verdict that sounded less like words and more like water flowing over stones. Rain didn't speak the language, but he knew the rhythm of a death sentence when he heard it. It is a strange quirk of the human condition that when the abyss finally stares back, we often choose to laugh. The crowd parted for her. She moved with the fluid grace of a predator, indigo skin absorbing the dying light, a tail adorned with chiming metal rings swaying behind her with hypnotic precision. Ishitari, the keeper of the right. Her eyes were cold calculators, assessing Rain as one might inspect an insect before crushing it. Rain, delirious from heat and captivity, recognized the legend from whispered campfire stories. He looked up at this avatar of death and forced a cracked, defiant smile. "Nice tale," he rasped. A challenge? A deflection? In his world, it was a throwaway line to break the tension. In hers, it was a detonator. The reaction was visceral. Gasps, hisses, hands covering faces in ritual horror. Then the flame. Brilliant blue fire ignited along the length of her tail, a cascade of cerulean light that banished the shadows and stunned the crowd into silence. She turned toward him, not with anger, but with the terrifying weight of inevitability. "You called," she whispered, her voice cutting through the silence in perfect English. "Now I must." Dawn found them miles from the settlement, exiles in a wasteland of violet rock. Rain stumbled over uneven ground, confused and aching, while Ishitari marched with stoic purpose. "Do you have a name, or should I just call you Blue?" he ventured, desperate to fill the silence. She stopped, the blue flame still dancing along her tail, indifferent to the wind. "In your world," she said, her voice heavy with ancient law, "it was a joke. In mine, it is an oath. You bound me. Now stay alive, or I become the shadow." We often think of language as a tool, a bridge between minds. But in the wrong mouth, a word can be a weapon of mass destruction. Rain had unwittingly invoked a binding ritual. As long as the flame burned, lit by his acknowledgement, she was his shield. The test of that shield came on the third day. They were the flame testers, wanderers who sought to break such bonds by the most efficient method available, killing the master. They emerged from the rocks, three figures of burnished copper and lethal intent. Ishitari engaged them, a whirlwind of blade and blue fire, moving like liquid violence. But she was outnumbered. A blow sent her staggering. Another drew purple blood. Rain stood frozen, a man who fixed comms arrays, not combat droids. Yet, when a blade arced toward Ishitari's exposed back, the technician moved. He didn't have skill, only desperation. Rain threw himself into the path of the strike. The steel sliced his arm, a spray of red blooming in the dust. Ishitari turned, her composure shattering into a primal roar. She decimated the attackers in a blur of fury, then knelt beside him, hands trembling. "You bleed for me?" she asked, disbelief warring with shame. "My flame was for duty. I failed." "You're not a shield." Rain winced, clutching his wound. "You're a person." They hid in a rocky gorge. As Rain tended her wounds, the reality of the bond became clear. 5 days. If the flame burned that long, their lines were linked forever. If he died before then, she faced eternal exile. It was a trap of honor. Desperate for supplies, Rain approached a small human monitoring station nearby. The security officer, eyeing his bandages, demanded intel on his local help. "They are dangerous," she warned, pulling up files on the marked warriors. "If one saved you, we need to know why. It's infiltration." Rain looked at the cold, sterile lights of the outpost. Safety, food, a ticket home. Then he thought of Ishitari waiting in the dark. "I'm not going back," he told the officer, slipping away into the shadows. Not if it means betraying her. The reckoning arrived with the sunrise. A dust cloud on the horizon revealed 20 mounted hunters, led by a warrior whose body was a tapestry of scars. Vorketh, her mentor. They cornered the pair against a ridge of black stone. Vorketh offered a choice that wasn't a choice. Cut the flame and return to the fold, or die with the human. Cut it, Rain urged, his voice low. Save yourself. Ishitari looked at him, her eyes fierce. Be quiet, human. You don't know what it means to choose. She stepped forward, accepting the ceremonial blade Vorketh offered. The hunters began a low chant, a vibration that hummed in the bones of the earth. Ishitari raised the weapon. She didn't strike her mentor. She struck herself. In one swift, agonizing motion, she severed her own tail. The blue flame flared brilliantly, then extinguished. She screamed, a sound of raw, physical and spiritual amputation, and collapsed into the sand. The hunters watched, impassive. The bond was broken. She was free and she was dying. But Rain refused to let the story end there. He rushed forward, gathering her limp body. You betrayed her mentor, he screamed at Vorketh, tears and rage blinding him. You were supposed to guide her, not condemn her. The old warrior looked at the ashes of the tail, then at the human who defied them all to hold a fallen alien. He lowered his spear. She left the right, Vorketh intoned, but not her strength. The circle parted. Rain carried her through a storm that night, finding shelter in a cave illuminated by bioluminescent moss. Stay with me, he begged, his hands stained with her blood. When she woke, the dynamic had shifted. The ritual was dead. The obligation was gone. You didn't leave, she whispered. You became a choice, he replied. In the quiet dark, stripped of tradition and biology, they were finally equals. He brought her to an abandoned outpost, a relic of old explorations. There he fashioned a bandage, and using the ashes of her tail, pressed a symbol into the floor. 2 worlds, 1 flame. As she recovered, learning to walk without the counterweight of her history, she faltered, dizzy and lost. Who am I? She asked, looking at the empty space behind her. Rain knelt before her, the one who chose. But to truly be free, they had to disappear. Rain infiltrated the active outpost one last time, hacking the logs to erase her existence. The security officer caught him, but didn't draw her weapon. She must be something special, she mused, to make a company man go native. She chose, Rain said, and vanished into the night. They were never seen again, or perhaps they were seen everywhere. Travelers began to find the symbol burned into rock and floor across the border territories. A legend grew of a woman without a tail and a man who walked beside her, not behind, not ahead. A story of a bond that defied the physics of their worlds. Years later, on a distant settlement, a child would point into the darkness at 2 figures passing on a ridge, trailed by a phantom glow. A blue flame that burned not on flesh, but in the air between them. A word had lit the fire, but it was choice that kept it burning.